what do you see as some of the really smart ways that some of these agencies, advertising agencies, are using AI right now? And I mean, this just really comes from, Jeff and I's conversation about what Meta had been talking about a couple of weeks ago, and just kind of hypothesizing around, man, there is this constant stream of data. There is this rapid turnaround of inference that can come from these models. Are we facing a day where everything is hyper personalized because that's what the machine is driving? It sounds like a lot of what you're talking about, though, is that the humanity isn't fully removed from this and won't be fully removed.
The humanity isn't fully removed. Now, one of the things some of the stuff I write on the edges, like 5 years ago, people said, okay, this is speculative. It all happened. So there may be a couple of things where it says, okay, the guy clearly has lost his minds already. And so I said, personalization is actually going to be replaced by something more important. And that's anticipation.
Knowing what you want before you know you want it.
Yeah. And that is going to be a combination of desire and data. Yeah. You don't anticipate your space. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I feel like that's been a promise for a very long time.
Right.
At least, I operate so deeply in the smartphone world, and how many years have they been trying to do that?
But the reason we couldn't do it because we didn't have these AI breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we basically could. Now,
because it was too much data or too little data?
There was too little data and not enough processing power, and then not enough ways to actually tell the story. So, see, one of my basic beliefs, and I might be wrong, one of my lines, besides cockroaches, which is now coming true, is I said too much of the advertising and marketing business was fixated on the plumbing versus the poetry, right? Which is finding the right person at the right place at the right time. But then we basically gave them the same old message. It's like, temperature is different here, color is different, right? And it's the equivalent of me taking my wife to Venice on a gondola on a moonlit night and then talking to her about contract plumbing or something like that. She'd kick me out. So my old stuff is if you find the right person, the right place, the right time, and you don't have the most appropriate message, you're hurting the brand, right? But the other one is brands tend to basically build one step ahead. They don't just react. Like the biggest brands always do something that is in the human condition, but it's one step ahead, which is the anticipation. So part
setting the trend, not following the trend.
Yeah, and so part of the research and data that all of this does is people are using it. So how are smart companies using it? One is obviously they're using it to get the plumbing better, the whole underlying architecture, finding the right person, the right place, the right time. Obviously, they're doing stuff with like messaging and changing the poetry, the 100 versions and all of that kind of stuff. There's 3 or 4 other ways that they're doing it. A lot of focus groups are being replaced by personas. So they're doing massive thing of trying to understand. That's part of the association. What is persona? They're actually doing it where they basically come up with base creative versions and they take some of their best minds to take it to the next level, right? So like when somebody basically said, I said, look, if I asked a question about aligning with a trend to ChatGPT or anybody else, this is the answer that comes up. Here is one page in my book where I show you what aligning with the trend is. And my aligning with the trend uses Julius Caesar from Shakespeare, take the current when it serves, and Star Wars, may the force be with you. And I said, people remember this versus this shit. Okay. But guess what happened? I first read this shit. I said, okay, got it. I put it aside and I said, now let me make it better, make it more human, make it more interesting. Let me differentiate against the engines, but using the engines, right, as a collaborator and tool. So a lot of people are also going to basically do that in better understanding and anticipating people's needs, right? Better understanding a whole bunch of other stuff. What they're also going to basically do, which I truly basically believe, and I've always basically believed, that at its heart, advertising is both also about the economics of information by letting people know about products and services. Otherwise, how are you going to, right? And I'll give you an idea of when the economics of information stop, what happens. And this is not a very popular, it's not a popular brand, but I'm going to give you something that most people have long forgotten. Until 1998 or 1999, and since 1999, the most valuable brand in the world has been Apple iPhone as a single brand. Apple iPhone is the most valuable brand. Okay. Until 1999, from about 1960s or 1970s to 1999, the most valuable brand in the world was Marlboro cigarettes. Okay, which people don't realize, right? Was the most valuable brand. And how did it get more and more and more valuable? I'll tell you. The reason is because you stopped advertising. So what basically happened is when they began to basically say you could not do advertising on TV and radio, first it was like broadcast, right? Most advertising basically was built on jingles, right? A cigarette shirt, et cetera, et cetera. And Marlboro was based on imagery and, Marlboro country, right? Freedom and a whole bunch of other stuff. So what basically happened is everybody else couldn't go into the world of imagery, which these people did. They first went into outdoor, but they went into clothing and ranches and trains because they had an idea that could transfer, right? And all the other market shares went down because nobody could actually beat this. Does that make sense? So when you freeze a market, it basically, to a great extent, it doesn't allow new innovation. It doesn't allow new companies. It doesn't allow, and a big part that I'm always concerned about this, everything becomes all incestuous and everything eats on its own tail, is what many of these models are. Yes. Right? And someone has to break through, to that. And that's where I think agencies, marketers will have a hope.